everyone. I'm Carolyn Pettit. Thanks for joining us for this now playing look at Dark Souls 2. I'm joined by Kevin VanOrd.
Hi.
Hi, Kevin. So you've reviewed Dark Souls 2. You've beaten Dark Souls 2.
I have. I did those things.
And now you are ready to die for us again. And not only that, but to answer people's questions about this game.
Yes, absolutely.
Please, if you're watching, hit us up with any questions you might want Kevin to answer about Dark Souls 2. And I guess, Kevin, maybe start off by giving us some idea of, so you're playing already. Is this like an early area in the game? Just get us a little situated here in terms of like what we're seeing.
Indeed. What I've done, last night I created a new character.
Okay.
Because I want to play again, first of all.
Sure.
And I want to play with a full contingent of people worldwide. And I've turned on, there's a little menu item if you want to play with people internationally or not. So I have international turned on, so I can see have all the more chances to be invaded or cooperatively help other people or whatever. So I am playing a warrior in this case. I played as a knight the first time around. There's actually not huge differences between how I'm approaching both of these characters.
Sure.
But so I'm level 20 or so. We can take a look, and I guess I should move around.
Yeah.
Because it's boring to watch me sit there. Sometimes I have a hard time talking and playing at the same time.
I do too.
And especially so with Dark Souls. But another big thing too is that I will be happy to ask any questions that you answer any questions that you have.
Yeah.
And I will try my best to avoid things I think are overt spoilers.
Okay, excellent.
But it still might. I mean, obviously, if you're watching, you shouldn't be watching. If you that sensitive.
Yeah,
to
if you really don't want anything about Dark Souls 2 spoiled for you, I mean, we will try to avoid major spoilers, but we are going to be talking about the game, so fair warning. Just be prepared. All right.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the questions right away. Sean McLaughlin on GameSpot asked, from what I've heard, it's not that this game is flat out harder, it's just cheaper to make it seem harder. Is this true?
I disagree. I actually think it's less cheap than Dark Souls. If you remember, so for example, if looking back on Dark Souls, you think of Undead Parish, you think of the placement of that guy that would throw the fire bombs and the narrow walkway that you had to walk out to him, and the dudes that you couldn't see coming sort of falling off above and down onto you. And you remember Sen's Fortress and all of the things that you couldn't see coming, and there was that mage that would fling at you when you were simply trying to cross, and he could get you real easily. And I would say Dark Souls 2 is less cheap than Dark Souls.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you can speak to this much, but Nin10000, also asking on GameSpot, asks, can you comment on the graphical features that are missing in the console version, and if those features will be there in the upcoming PC version?
I know that a lot of people have talked about this, and I don't know for sure. I think that the fact that the dynamic lighting being the big thing that people were talking about, that was missing, the lighting people have expected. So I don't know what the PC version will have over. Obviously, it's going to look better by very nature. It will support higher resolution. So, for example, I'm playing on the PS3 here, and
and someone asked in the chat or mentioned that earlier you'd played on a debug for review, but this is now a retail environment. So you can see other players as the kind of phantoms, and there can be messages left by other players and everything. Just to clarify that for anyone who was wondering.
I'm taking a beating here. I'm not really in a good place to be coming up against these guys yet, but I'm getting a little cocky and decided I'll go for it.
AMG231 on GameSpot asks, is the targeting system different from that in Dark Souls?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's as far as I can tell, exactly the same. There are enemies that let you target different places on their bodies, really large enemies. As far as I know, there's not, placement damage or anything like that, not localized damage or anything. But you can still in certain cases, like large bosses. There was a time where you you locked in on the boss and you just locked into some vague point in their middle.
Sure.
And sometimes that could cause problems. Now there are cases where you have something like a large whatever, and you can target like both feet individually or the middle of the boss if you prefer, if you're doing magic and stuff. So
cool. Let's see. J533 on GameSpot is asking, the area you're playing in with the large knights that annihilated me last night, what level is appropriate for that area for the player?
You could potentially do this right away with some practice, actually. I'd say that. Oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe if you're level 15, level 20, for a lot of people that'll be near the beginning of the game.
Sure, some classes start. Yeah.
I'm not doing great against this guy.
Yeah.
Oop, I didn't block in enough time. I'm gonna run.
I'm
gonna go elsewhere.
Running is always,
Running is okay.
Okay in Dark Souls. There is no shame in retreating to regroup. And living to fight another day.
Yeah.
Mike D79 on GameSpot asks, is there an actual end boss to this game?
Yes. Okay. Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I saw Yeah28 in the Twitch chat ask a question that is actually of interest to me as well. Because I really like the way that Dark Souls 1 handles its story in such a minimalistic way. There's definitely lore there.
Yes.
And if you pay attention, you can kind of piece together the history of the world, but it never does the thing that I think so many fantasy role-playing games are guilty of like this over-exposition and these like lore dumps that are just very artificial. So Yeah28 in the Twitch chat asks, are story, lore, and characters handled in a way similar to Dark Souls 1 more or less?
Yes,
okay.
About the same. I would say it's actually a little more straightforward.
Okay.
But not immensely so.
Okay.
The characters still speak as though, in most role-playing games you go and you play Skyrim and everybody just dumps information on you and you go and read books and as if I would walk around the city of San Francisco and people would just say, I would go up to the strangers and they would say, hey, by the way, did you know that Coit Tower was, people don't actually do that. Here, people are, the NPCs even seem out for themselves. They only tell you what's pertinent to them.
Cool.
But they still drop hints. They still, tell you more or less kind of what to do, but you have to pay attention. And there are cases, there's no quest log, there is no waypoint system, nothing like that.
Sure.
So, but that's always been like that for Dark Souls.
And on a related note, Skrillback in the Twitch chat asking, is the story interesting? Like,
I think so.
Okay.
And I'm trying not to give anything away by saying this. I don't think I am. I actually feel a little bit more involved with the story this time based on some things that happened towards the end of the game.
Okay.
That felt like, hey, Dark Souls is actually trying something really interesting and different here. And by involving me more directly in the story than it typically does, and I think it was really successful at doing that.
Let's see. In the S999 on GameSpot asks, how long was your first playthrough?
80 hours.
About 80 hours?
I'd say. I finished at, I think, soul level 131 or so. Robert
Liff 519 on GameSpot asks, is the world a lot bigger than the previous one?
Yes. I would say the world is definitely bigger. I don't want to put a percentage on it because I'm always afraid that somebody will come back and say, wow, Kevin, you said it was about twice as big, but actually it's only 66%.
Yeah, you're going to see the people out there, once the PC version comes out, who can actually kind of take, like put the two worlds next to each other and come up with exact.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly how much
It's not like
bigger.
From Software has come out and said, well, the world is 200, 250, whatever. It's 2.5 times the size, or X kilometers.
So, but it is notably bigger.
Sure.
And there's notable diversity, and clearly From Software wants you to see the rest of this world because one of the much discussed changes is that enemies don't respawn infinitely in an area. Eventually you will get to the point where they start phasing out. Some enemies will just stop respawning. In some areas, and certain enemies just don't stop respawning, as far as I can tell. And there are items that you can use to make them respawn again.
All right.
But it also makes those enemies harder when you do that. So.
Keep the questions coming, everyone. We're taking them on here in the Twitch chat if you're watching on Twitch, in the comments on GameSpot, and on Twitter if you want to tweet us with questions at GameSpot. We're taking those questions as well. So, in the S999 asks, in relation to the change in difficulty, did you find that dying occurred more often in Dark Souls 2 than the original Dark Souls?
I feel like I died less during bosses and more in other places. Oops, that was not me at my best there. Oh well. So I would say that overall I felt like I had to deal with bosses less. There were a couple bosses that several bosses that I beat the first time through, which was pretty rare in the original Dark Souls. And of course in Demon Souls, except for the first boss in Demon Souls, which was fairly simple. Not the tutorial boss, but the big lump of flesh.
Sure.
Phalanx, I guess.
All right, my Twitter buddy Rodrigo asking on GameSpot, and maybe this is a good question just for anybody who's not familiar with the Dark Souls games in general. He says, I'm a Dark Souls noob. What are the ghosts, the bloodstains, and how does the mechanic and all that stuff, and how does the mechanic of invasion by other players work?
All right, so here you see, this is a ghost. This is another player playing their own copy of the game in a parallel world to this one, basically. Now, when you see those people, when those people die, they will leave a bloodstain, and so here's a bloodstain. I can touch it, and I will see the last seconds of that character's life. You see it playing out in front of me, and then they die, and boom. So these are teaching tools. You can see the ghosts there. I mean,
the ghost, I feel, for me, the ghost is more of this, like an emotional thing. It just creates this sense of, like you said, parallel worlds of, just that awareness that there are other players out there on this same adventure, facing these same struggles.
It's almost like there's a certain camaraderie in it, an unspoken camaraderie to me that I really, really like.
The bloodstains, though, I agree, can definitely be teaching tools. They might reveal the presence of an enemy that you didn't know was there, for instance.
See, this is actually a good one. Well, if I can, I will activate it again. This is a good one. Now I know what's going to happen, and there's a live player to the left.
Yeah.
So you see him go up there.
There's obviously a threat there.
There's obviously some kind of threat.
Yeah.
So I already know that there are going to be these ballista type things that are going to shoot at me if I try to walk in front. Yeah. So I'm going to do that, and they won't go off.
It looks like
again. There they go. And then there's that dude going to come out, and if I'm lucky,
they hit.
They hit him, but he survived. Oh, that was rough. Sorry.
No,
you're
doing fine. I mean, it's tough. It is tough. Oh boy. Oh yeah. Even like the most standard, weakest enemies in this game, if they outnumber you, they can always pose a serious threat. All right. Well.
And so I respawn, which is fine.
Of course,
this is Dark Souls.
It's part of the Dark Souls experience. You're not going to get through this game without dying a whole bunch. And now we'll get to see, how you can recover your souls, right?
Sure.
Okay.
So we'll show how you recover your souls. So it's sort of like the old MMO tactic of going and getting
back
your corpse to loot the things off of it. But I only get this one chance. So if you drop your souls, you have a chance to go back and get all the souls you lost. Now, the souls are the currency in the game. You use them for literally everything.
Sure.
You use them to buy equipment, to level up, and so on and so forth. So souls are important.
All right, to continue the interrogation, Soundaholic92 asks, with respect to the lock-on, I heard you can face away from enemies and run while maintaining lock-on.
That is true. You know what? I guess I didn't quite answer the lock-on appropriately. I was more thinking about the core nature of the lock-on.
Sure.
But indeed, you can now sprint while you are locked on to enemies, and when I get a chance, I'll show that when it's a better area to do something like that in. But you can now sprint while you are locked onto enemies, and that actually came in pretty handy during some boss fights.
I think it might be a while before any player discovers the answer to this question, but Bob Jones 1980 asks in the Twitch chat, do you think the game has a special event if you beat it without dying? I mean, who can say?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But one of the nice things about Dark Souls. Oh crap, we both missed each other. One of the nice things about Dark Souls is that there are just certain things that just sort of happen.
Right. Ha!
So yeah, I'm. There maybe.
Yeah.
It would certainly be a Dark Souls way of dealing with stuff if there was. There's certain things I miss from Demon Souls actually that are gone, like world tendency. I think that would be fun to bring back in a way, but I think the Covenants are more than a great sort of replacement for those. Maybe we should talk about Covenants.
And actually that leads right into the next question I was going to ask you. J533-2 on GameSpot asks, he says, possible spoiler, can you speak to the consequences, if any, of joining and then leaving Covenants?
I don't know about leaving Covenants yet. One thing I do notice is that, and you can leave Covenants, but one thing I've noticed is that you don't necessarily have to choose one or the other. I've chosen, when I played the first time through, I've joined multiple Covenants, and I did not have to leave one Covenant to join another. You just simply wear the ring. I don't think I have. Oh, I do have a Covenant ring on. So I have the Blue Seal ring on, which is the Covenant, the Apostles of Blue, which is the pretty much one of two Covenants that you can join in the very first area, right there in front of you. So as far as I can tell, just wearing the ring associated with that Covenant gives you the benefits or risks.
Okay, so we don't know about what happens if you leave a Covenant, but can you speak at all to what are the characteristics that occur just by joining a Covenant?
Sure. Some of them anyway. Some of them are a mystery.
Sure.
But I can tell you that I'm saying a lot. I'm really sorry about that.
No.
So the Keeper of Blue is all about helping each other. So I do believe that when in need, I will be able to summon in helpers from my own Covenant to assist me in battle.
Nice.
In pre-release, I joined the Bellkeeper's Covenant, and sadly, I didn't get a real big chance to test that one out. But the way, the crossbow got him that time. The bow got him.
Yeah.
The ballista. So what that does is it's a PvP Covenant where there is a bell tower.
Okay.
And people want to go up and ring that bell tower, and I will be going out to stop people from ringing their bells.
I see.
Just as they would want to stop me from ringing my bell. So, and that is not, that crap. No! I knew it as soon as I started drinking the Estus. I could see him coming. I knew that his animation was in progress and that I was toast. So, yes, Covenants.
Covenants, yeah. So
but those are some examples of Covenants. The other Covenant that you can join in Majula, the first area, the area that serves as your hub, makes the game harder. So it's really a way of getting New Game Plus type challenge without actually starting a New Game Plus.
Afanati on Twitch asks, do I have to play the first Dark Souls first?
No, but you should.
Right.
You should play it because it's awesome.
Right, but not because it's there are like narrative connections where there's going to be things in Dark Souls 2 that you don't understand if you haven't played Dark Souls.
Yeah, I will say this though. There are a few nods to the original Dark Souls.
Okay.
Outside of the main mechanics, which are obviously quite connected.
Sure.
But there are a few, I guess, nods to the fandom. there's an area, pardon me. When you do that, when you join that Bellkeeper's Covenant, you also unlock a secret area. And in that area, there's an optional boss and an area beyond that. And they are clear references to Dark Souls.
Okay.
The boss is a reference to a Dark Souls boss, for sure. And the area that you go to after that, you have to fight an NPC invader, Black Phantom, after you go through that area. And that takes place in an area that's essentially identical to the place where you fight the Capra Demon in Dark Souls.
Okay.
So, and it's a great tie between the games because there are lots of dogs in that area in Dark Souls 2, just as there were lots of dogs in that area in Dark Souls. So it's definitely meant to be a nod to fans, but you don't have to understand those little a reference like that to get the most. There are no direct narrative ties. Saw that coming too.
Gambit K on GameSpot asks, do you think this game looks about as good or better or worse than the first game?
Maybe about the same. I haven't played the original Dark Souls in a while, and the last time I did was on the PC, so I don't think it's fair to obviously compare Dark Souls PC to Dark Souls 2 PS3. I think they're more or less the same. There's been some hubbub about the lighting, and I get that.
Yeah.
Actually, I would say that there are places where Dark Souls 2 looks washed out and a little flat.
Sure.
And I think those moments come later in the game rather than earlier. I feel like these early areas were built when the lighting engine was, meant to be a little bit more sophisticated.
Yeah. All right, so once again, folks, if you're just joining us, maybe you're watching us play Dark Souls 2 and taking your questions. You can leave your questions in the Twitch chat if you happen to be watching on Twitch, or in the comments on GameSpot if you're watching on GameSpot.com. And you can also hit us up with questions on Twitter. You can use the hashtag GSDS2. GSDS2 if you would like to get us your questions on Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, the Guildmaster on Twitter asks, do monsters still respawn when you use a campfire? And
they do.
Yeah.
But only after a certain amount of time. They will stop respawning, and it doesn't happen all at once when that happens. And it takes some time for that to happen, but eventually they will stop respawning, and you'll have clearer areas. It's one of the things I wasn't sure if I liked or not when I first started. And eventually I grew to really appreciate that, even though at first I thought, well, it's going to lose some of that, that repetition that makes Dark Souls what it is. The way it gets under your skin and you're thinking about all the time, and your muscle memory knows how to go through these areas and so on. But ultimately, oh, damn it, I hit the wrong button. Try to. Oh, heartbreaking. No! Oh, I'm screwed. I'm screwed. Oh, I'm not screwed. Now I'm screwed.
Now you're...
That's all right. I think I'm going to come back and get my bloodstain.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go back and level up. And
cool.
Yes.
All right.
I'm sorry. Sometimes it can be really hard to focus on other things while playing Dark Souls.
Absolutely. Too. Of course. Any game that requires any kind of focus or attention, it can be really difficult actually to play and talk at the same time.
Yeah. So I do beg for forgiveness for anybody saying, "Oh, I could do this spot in my sleep."
Someone asks on Twitch that you mentioned something in your review about new interesting battles near the end of the game.
Yes.
Can you give any non-spoilery examples to whet our appetite?
Yes, although I don't know, like my version of what constitutes a spoiler might be different from your version of what constitutes a spoiler, so I will try to be really careful, but there's a moment where you're not... There are battles where you are not the only participant in the battle. It is something that makes you feel like a part of a greater conflict.
Okay. That sounds cool. That sounds really cool. Al Norris on GameSpot asks, is this game
Hello.
like the hardest game ever?
No.
No. No, there you have it. It is not the hardest
I mean,
game
it's
ever.
hard.
Right.
Oh, I lost all my souls from the previous drop because I'm being sloppy.
It happens. And when it's a lot of souls that you lose, it's such a feeling of anguish as you know that all those souls are gone forever.
So when I get up this time, and this will allow me to show you something else, I'm going to use an item called an effigy. And human effigies are items that you can use to restore your humanity. So what happens whenever I die is that I lose a little bit more of my humanity and I go hollow. So when your health bar is full, is at the maximum it can go, you're fully human. But as soon as you lose some of your maximum health, you go hollow, and then you keep losing that until you get to 50% of the way down. So using an effigy like this one restores my humanity, and you'll now see that my maximum health
and your complexion, you just look so much healthier now, Kevin. It does wonders for your skin.
It does, and I'm gonna rest so that I can refill my health. And I see that somebody has dropped a summon sign.
Justin Haywald in the Twitch chat with an important question. He asks, Kevin, have you seen Frozen yet?
I knew this was coming. No, I have not. Everybody seems to stop talking about that. So the guy, apparently the guy took his summon sign away or was summoned by someone else.
So you weren't able to. Yeah, let's see if we can.
So summon signs
help a player out, or let them help you out.
Oh, I know, right? That's always sad. So summon signs allow me to summon people into my world to give me a hand, and I thought it would be nice to show that.
That would be cool.
And for some reason, there were tons of summon signs. How about? Oh, I don't think I have a soapstone yet.
Linths999 wants me to tell you that you're doing a good job. He or the user can't talk and play a game at the same time, let alone a game like Dark Souls. So don't sweat it. It's definitely tough.
Well, I won't be losing any sleep over it or anything.
Okay, that's good.
But yeah, now I lost all those souls, so I'm gonna have to do some more of this. But yeah, and I haven't come across a soapstone yet, so I won't be able to summon anybody to help me, or I should say to avail myself to others. Crap.
Sunbeam4 asking in Twitch, do you think we can expect a relevant, I'm not sure quite what they mean, a relevant PC port, and maybe the arrival of an Ultimate Edition at a later date on next gen?
See, these things are always hard because, I mean, saying what I think sort of implies I have some inside knowledge, and I don't have any inside knowledge to stuff like that. I can take guesses, but they're not even really any more educated than the guesses that anybody else would have. But oh, let's try the summon sign. Darn it! So I do expect, and I haven't played the PC version yet, but I do expect that From Software and Namco have sort of learned their lessons from the last port, the PC port of Dark Souls, which was not keyboard and mouse friendly, was ran at relatively low resolution. Even when you cranked up the resolution, all it was really doing was stretching the picture as opposed to, or compressing the picture as opposed to actually being at a higher resolution. So, oh, good, he missed me. Heartbreaking. So, but I do expect that they will have learned their lessons. At least that is what they have said. But of course, take what publishers say, to with a grain of salt.
Right. Bob Jones 1980 asking in the chat, the Twitch chat question that I think is the answer is kind of interesting. He asks, why doesn't another GameSpot staff member play the game with you? But in fact, Dark Souls doesn't work that way, right? It's not like if I were playing at home and you were playing at home, we could create a party and deliberately choose to play together.
Right. That just isn't how this game is set up. This game is set up to be vague. This game is set up to to bring strangers together in that respect. And the connections are tenuous. I cannot go in and invite somebody from my, gosh darn it, all of the summonings, none of them were working. So I can't, say send Caro an invite and say, hey, why don't you play Dark Souls with me?
Right.
There is one addition, one nod, as it were, to modern games, and that is, or I should say expectations of games, and that is that there is now voice chat.
Oh, really?
So you can now chat with cooperative partners. So
LBX33 asking on Twitter.
It's almost like that person put that summon sign there just to make people go out there.
Which
is quite possible.
Yeah, I mean, in Dark Souls 2, other players will mislead you about as often as they will try to steer you on the right path. I mean, there will be messages that lead you down the wrong directions, that lead you right into danger.
Usually they do that with notes. So here you see a message left that says trio ahead.
Yeah.
That's a good message. The main things to see that dude, oh no, he's just moved. So there's a guy up here with a firebomb that he'll throw if I move out there. And then there's this turtle dude. So the first thing I'm going to do is not get hit by fire.
Oh.
But I'm going to try, here's what I'm going to try to do with, you know what, I don't want to do this yet.
Okay.
I'm getting ahead of myself. I should really clear out this area in here if there's anything left before I do that. Because then I can lure Turtle Dude in and use these against him.
Oh, nice.
But I want to make sure, because sometimes the dudes down here will also climb up the ladder. And I want to make sure that that doesn't happen.
All right, LBX33 on Twitter asked, seems like, at least early on, I'm not finding many armor sets, especially light armor. Does more come later on?
It does. Part of that is that the game is bigger, so certain things are stretched out. On one hand, I found myself getting more loot than I expected from fallen foes. On the other hand, really useful things like armor and weapons seem to come a little bit slower, and I think that's because it's more stretched out. It's more stretched across the, the experience rather than front-loaded.
Sure. Bacon Elite asks on GameSpot, does this game require skill or just a lot of trial and error?
Both.
Yeah.
I would say that those two things can't necessarily be separated all of the time, and this is one of those cases where learning makes you better, but you're not just learning very specific areas, you're also learning tactics that might work against other enemies. And then you go into new areas. For example, you go into a place that's filled with water, and suddenly you move slowly, and you then have to realize, let's hope I can pull this off, and then you have to realize that, hey, I have to approach this differently. But oops, missed.
Oof.
There we go. He's down. So, but you wouldn't necessarily know to try this the first time. You might go up against Turtle Dude. He is tough. 50 levels later, he will still be tough. Mm-hmm. He's rough because he will beat up on you and he will roll over on you. And my usual tactics, which sometimes involve, with this class, getting in very close and circle strafing around, don't work because he will roll over on top of me. And that's a very mean thing to do. So
it is mean. It's just rude, frankly.
It really is rude.
It's impolite. Caleb Sandland asks on GameSpot,
hi, Caleb.
How many hidden weapons are there, like the Drake sword from the OG Dark Souls? Do you?
They're definitely out there, and some of the things I got were from, from NPCs that weren't necessarily dangerous, but sometimes you have to make a decision. Do you trust an NPC? And there are some times where you're not sure if somebody will help. Like even in one of the first areas, and if I go through there, I'll show you. There's just a knight sitting against a tree, and he's clearly an enemy because you can target him straight off. But the question is, what happens if I just leave him alone?
Sure.
Because he doesn't attack me.
Okay.
So, but he's one of those examples where, you can get something off of him, but maybe there's a reason to keep him around. But there are things. There's a soldier like that I got a great helmet off of in the last time I played. I'm trying to keep it unspoilery. There's a large creature that you come across that is clearly you're meant to talk to him, and he only responds with an ellipsis. Do you just kill him and take what he's got, or maybe if you do something that he wants you to do, he will be appreciative of that. So sometimes those questions you don't know the answer to, but there could be some loot in it for you. In that case, maybe he'll just have a ring or a sword. Sometimes they'll drop a hint. An NPC might say, yeah, I came here through with my buddy before. He said he was going to go in first, but he hasn't come back yet, but I have his ring. So I killed him. Well, not the first time. The first time I let him live, and then he shows up as a helper that you can summon. But this time around, I killed him because I wanted the ring.
Yes.
And it was a ring that I didn't have the first time. It's a ring that damages enemies every time they attack.
That sounds
I
useful.
cannot get a single summoning sign to work.
Maybe there's still
there
some
could be
server
some network issues, maybe. But I'm gonna do something different. I'm not gonna turn in these souls for anything just yet. I'm gonna go out there, but I'm gonna go a different route so that you don't have to see me doing that same thing.
A question came in on the chat, on the Twitch chat. Is there a super-powered item or weapon that makes the game easier? I want to mention that we have a story up on GameSpot about, is it 20 items?
30 items.
30 items to maybe collect before you even enter your first fight. So there's plenty of stuff very early on in the game that might be a little off the beaten path. That if you want to snoop around and really be thorough, you can collect that will actually end up being very helpful to you on your Dark Souls 2 adventure.
And then you have to wonder, too, about the classes. So, for example, a lot of people felt that, say magic was easy mode in Dark Souls.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, that was heartbreaking. And I think there's still, in some ways yes, in some ways no, I think is true of this time. I'm not much of a magic user, as you can see. I'm not using any magic. But I will say that a lot of the bosses take place in closer areas. A lot of the enemies are a lot faster. So there are definitely occasions where having magic is a detriment rather than necessarily a positive thing. So, but later on I did do pyromancy. But then what I found with pyromancy is that I couldn't rely on it as much as I had in Dark Souls. There were some places in Dark Souls where I could just just fling a fireball. This will get me out of that position. But in general, enemies close distance a lot faster, I feel. And there are fewer chances to do cheesy things like shoot 100 arrows at something until it dies before you ever get close to it.
Justin Haywald asking, where can I get Kevin's hat?
I have another one of these on my desk if you want it, Justin.
There you go.
You can also go to Ireland, presumably,
I imagine,
to get this hat.
Maybe, somewhere. Soundaholic92 asks on GameSpot, your review mentioned a seemingly bottomless hole in Majula. The abyss makes a return.
It is an abyss down there. It's not. It's not the same abyss.
Okay.
But yeah, there's stuff down there, but you have to be patient. You can't just go trying falling. And see, there's a little bit of a tease too, because in a room next to there's a cat that talks about covenants and sells you some.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
I forgot.
Ah, Dark Souls. Dark Souls, you jerk.
So the cat sells a ring that reduces falling damage.
Uh-huh.
And when I bought that ring eventually because I was like, okay, yeah. So I'm like at level 50 something now, and I think I should have enough health. Put that ring on, I should be able to fall down there. Nope. 25 levels later, I go back. Nope.
Can't do it.
But eventually, you do get down there, but it's not by falling.
Sure. Stormer81 in the Twitch chat says, weird question, but is there any advantage to playing the deprived class, or is it just to make the game harder?
Well, I think it depends on how you look at it. It does make the game initially harder, but all things considered, my understanding, and I'm only going by what I've heard as opposed to what I've experienced, but my understanding is that all things considered, you will ultimately have been able to spend more points by the time you get to a certain level than if you played another class. So my understanding, and again, I don't want to be the authority on this. Look it up just in case.
You haven't done the math yourself.
I haven't done the math myself,
Yeah.
but from what I understand from several places, is that by the time you spend points to get to level like say 15 as a deprived, you will actually now have more points spent than if you had started with another class and started at level 13, for example.
Sure.
I'm gonna get down from here because I don't really wanna. Okay.
Robertal519 asks, are the bosses a lot harder or easier than Dark Souls?
No, I don't want to fall.
That was close. You came awfully close to
I did
falling.
come awfully close. Come down here for a second and regroup. What was the question?
Sorry, no, that's fine. Are the bosses noticeably harder or easier in general than those in Dark Souls?
I felt like they were easier, but I'm always nervous when I try to get up on that branch.
Yeah, it looks...
I feel like in general they were a little easier.
Okay.
But in a sense, that's because, for one, I had fewer things to worry about, like falling. I felt like falling was less of a problem during boss fights than it has been before.
Oof.
I know, that's heartbreaking.
You're getting shot by this jerk.
Oh!
Oh, no! Oh, no! Aw,
I thought
you know what? You died.
I tried to click, so I just want to point out there is a little bit of a change in the controls, which I think is good, except for the fact that my click didn't register that time. I didn't click hard enough. So you still use the circle button for dodging and for sprinting, but now to leap during sprinting, you click the left thumbstick. And so I started to run, and I went to click the left thumbstick, but I wasn't strong enough. My thumb wasn't wasn't on the ball.
Yeah. You need to be doing more of those thumb exercises. There's been a request that a Twitch user in the chat has made repeatedly, and I'll just pass it along to you. He would really like it at some point during the stream for you to say, "Your soul is mine."
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Praise the sun. I will do that.
Praise the sun. Bayern fan asks, I could be a newcomer to Dark Souls. How would you rate the replay value of Dark Souls compared to that of the Elder Scrolls series?
Oh, they're so different.
They really are. They're so different.
It's such a weird thing.
I mean, obviously, yeah, sure, they're both, in a sense, they're both role-playing games. they're both open world games of a sort, but in such different ways.
I mean, I would say that, I mean, obviously I think Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 are eminently replayable.
Sure.
As is Demon Souls, for all sorts of reasons. You know, how, taking a different class and going a very different route, how is that going to change things? There's so many things that on the first playthrough I didn't discover. What happens if I do this rather than that? What happens if I don't kill that weird scorpion and instead I do what he wants and I get to talk to him, I mean, but it's not as though, I mean, as much as I love Dark Souls and the Souls games in general, it's really hard for me to say, oh yeah, because Skyrim is simply bigger.
Yes.
And an Elder Scrolls game is typically there's just a lot to it. There are a lot more intertwining mechanics in general in an Elder Scrolls game, and that in and of itself.
Yeah, I'd say I mean the if I had to be very kind of reductive and simplify things a lot, I'd say that the big reward or the big draw, for me anyway, of an Elder Scrolls game like Skyrim is simply just being in that world, exploring it, feeling like I'm exploring and like there's adventure around every corner. I see this cave, I can go into this cave, maybe there's some great treasure or weapons in there, and there's also so many quests and so many storylines to follow. In Dark Souls, there's no quest lines, there isn't a world that you can I mean, Dark Souls really, that was a great blood stain. The rewarding thing about Dark Souls is overcoming really grueling challenges. At least that's a big part of it. And that's not something that the Elder Scrolls games are really about. So they're really very different. I mean, yeah, they're just different in so many ways.
We're going to meet Map Guy now. So this is the guy that I just call Map Guy.
Map Guy. They're called cartographers.
I love this. Somebody left the message.
Yeah, rear
ahead. I'm going to rate it because I think it's clever.
Yeah. Okay. Thanacore asks on Twitter, is this a day one purchase, or are there things that need patching first, like with previous entries in the series?
Well, I mean, I'd say it's a day one purchase, but I would have said that about Dark Souls in spite of the patches that came later. I think that there are fewer things that feel less in need of patching. So, for example, the way curses worked in Dark Souls 1 could be very frustrating because each time you got cursed, you lost half of your health bar, and it stacked over and over and over and over again. You could basically you were in an impossible position after a while.
Sure.
And that was eventually patched. And in fact, they sort of incorporated what they learned from cursing into Dark Souls 2, so that it was really, really smart. Basically, getting cursed now drops your health bar as much as a death drops it.
Okay.
So it's basically like you're getting the death penalty without actually having to die. So that's pretty smart, actually. So, I mean, there's still things to be worked out. I ran into a bug last night. Here's a nice house key. So we need that house key. We're going to go back to Majula so we can use that house key. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely things that I'm sure they'll fix. The thing last night was an enemy disappearing right in front of me, which I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
So, and it's possible that the problems with summons could be related to online functionality. I know tonight, our time between 11 and 2, the servers will be down for maintenance.
Okay.
So I presume that they've still got some things they want.
Man, he's really booking it up that ladder.
The speed ladder climbing is funny because there's not a different animation for when you're hurrying.
Yeah.
It's just the same animation sped up, which is hysterical.
It is pretty funny looking.
Also, that's another little bug that sometimes crops up that hopefully they'll address, is sometimes the sound effects are, rarely, but sometimes the sound effects are delayed. So.
So J533 asks on GameSpot, Can you speak to the ability to refill spells for sorcery users without resting at a bonfire? When leveling in Dark Souls, it was somewhat difficult for magic users early on because of the limited spell use.
Because I'm not a spell user, I'm afraid of answering
Sure.
that question in any kind of... Oh, shit!
Oh, good Lord, Kevin. Kevin, I think that
you know what happened?
I think that was not a smart decision, Kevin.
But
I'm going to say that maybe you should not have gone down there.
Do you know what happened? Is I moved the controller a little bit,
Yeah.
and my finger hit the heavy attack button, and then it pushed me forward, and then I tried really hard to move back.
Yeah.
You cannot, under any circumstance, make any errant controller presses. That was embarrassing. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm so embarrassed by that.
It's okay. Ann3VO asks on Twitch, is dual wielding viable?
Yes, it is. I played around with it a little bit, so I don't want to say, oh, it's viable, 20 million... see, these guys are gone now. Or at least that guy that sits there is gone, and that guy's gone too. So those two guys are no longer spawning. So I just want to point out a little bit of that spawning change. But what was the question again?
Was that dual wielding?
Dual wielding, yeah. Actually, it is. What I played is pretty viable. It's fast if you are somebody who likes to dodge, and sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. Then dual wielding is a lot of fun because you go in, do some good damage, and then just jump away. So if you like the agility, if you want to go for some high agility and strength and keep the armor light, and certainly. And here's another interesting change, because in Dark Souls, one thing that I did for multiple bosses is strip naked. You can just go in, strip. And I mean my character.
Yes, because it makes you more agile. It makes you faster.
It makes you very agile.
Yes.
So for now, you can see, with this armor, sort of how I'm dodging. I'll take off my stuff. And so this is my grossness.
You
But you
really
can see
need to go to
that
a dermatologist.
I'm much more agile.
Sure.
This way, but I found myself doing that a lot less. As a knight, I was blocking. So, for example, that's how I beat Moonlight Butterfly. Was
in
naked.
Dark Souls, sure.
It's how I beat Gaping Dragon, and it's how I beat Ceaseless Discharge. Was naked in all of those cases.
All right, well, actually, going to hit you up with our last question of the stream here now.
Oh, are we finishing?
I think we're at the point where we need to start wrapping things up.
Oh, well, that's some bullshit.
But so Caleb Sandland asked on GameSpot, is it a good idea to play as an archer class?
Much more so than in Dark Souls, in my estimation. So I felt like Demon Souls, it was actually much more viable to be an archer than it was in Dark Souls. But I think that that's come back a little bit. I had one nice change is that if you use a crossbow, you can now aim, which you couldn't before with a crossbow. I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, you're fine. It was just a bit of miscommunication or misunderstanding on my part. We're not totally done taking questions just yet. In fact, I just want to send out one last reminder to people. If you're watching the stream, we're taking your questions on Twitch, on GameSpot, and also on Twitter, where you can hit us up using the hashtag GSDS2. So
there's bloodstains here, so
yes.
that tells you that something might
there's
possibly happen.
There's an awful lot of bloodstains. So you walk into an area, you see a ton of bloodstains.
Be wary of skeleton, pull back.
You might be in a dangerous area.
So the skeleton's not going to be in here, though. This is interesting down here. This comes into greater play a little bit later. You've come in here, you've seen this. It looks like it might just be some random stone or engraving. It is not actually random at all.
All right. We'll leave it at that for now.
And I'm going to come down here. Look at all the blood. But
and there's
I knew
there's
he was
a
coming.
skeleton. Dr. Vivi on GameSpot.
I missed. I can't believe I missed.
Dr. Vivi on GameSpot asks, does the torch mechanic seem a bit pointless now that the game is much brighter than the earlier demos?
Yes.
Yes? Was there not really areas where you really felt like you had to rely on?
No, there was one area in particular, two areas actually, where it was not necessarily vital. And somebody wanted to know about the torch. I'll go ahead and show that to you. I'm going to make sure that this place is sort of cleaned out of stuff, and then I'll grab the torch and show people. So, if there's any other need for the torch or any other option that you have for lighting all the torches, I have not found it, and I don't know what it is, aside from lighting dark areas. But it does become important, just not as important as maybe the early demos might have suggested. But then again, because I avoided most early information on the game on purpose, so that I wouldn't, so that I could come in as blind as possible. I guess I wasn't so worried about what might have been said that didn't come to pass.
Yes.
But I will show something here with. I'll go ahead and light the torch. Here's another thing that you might not have noticed if you're playing. By the way, you can light the torch at a bonfire if there's not another lit torch nearby, like the one that you see here, by going to the bonfire, pressing triangle, or Y if you're playing on the Xbox 360, and there's another option there, which is to light the torch. So that's something that I didn't notice for like 25 hours.
Here's a question coming in from the GameSpot comments. The original Dark Souls had some pretty nasty lag issues and FPS drops in some areas.
Yeah.
Blighttown, most
being
notably.
the big...
Yeah. Are there any such locations in Dark Souls 2 that have this problem?
No.
Okay.
There are some occasional frame rate drops when, like that part I talked about with some bigger battles that I mentioned earlier. There are a couple there when, there are some particles flying around and some stuff happening on screen, but typically frame rate's just not an issue this time, which is good. And I imagine that that's partially why they changed up the lighting model, given given the problems the frame rate was in Dark Souls and Demon Souls to a lesser extent. Then I imagine that they wanted to limit those issues. Let's see what my friend in here. This is the blacksmith. So let's see if I can reinforce. Oh, I don't have any Titanite shards. So nope, no reinforcement for me. So let's go
He's a
back.
busy man.
Yeah, he's a busy man. Don't waste his time, even though like I'm the only person apparently buying armor. Well, I don't think I can level up with 2,000 souls.
Is that here?
Oh, I found an Estus Flask shard. I didn't even notice.
So that makes your Estus flasks more effective.
Well, in this case, it gives me another Estus Flask.
Ah, okay.
So to make them more effective,
because I noticed that under Estus
here.
Flask it says Estus Flask +1.
Yeah, that's what you get from bone dust.
Okay.
You can bring bone dust, and this is where you do it. You come and you burn at a fire, and you're able to then burn the dust, and that's what gives you the +1, the +2, and so on. So you can burn an effigy if you want fewer people around you. Oh, there's some blood stains up here. Let's see if we can come across... Who has a blood stain up here?
Maybe
I want to
just
see. He was fighting something up there, but I don't know what. Did he attack the dude?
Maybe he must
Oh,
have.
this one's over on the cliff edge. This should be fun.
Yep. He's gonna go for it. Woohoo!
So this message might be a trick. Try jumping and then visions of jumping off.
Someone fell for it.
Okay, so I'm going to rate that because it's actually not misleading. Because what it's really saying is if you jump off, you're going to then have a vision of jumping off because then there are visions that I'm going to have of them jumping off. I think it's actually quite Dark Soulsian.
Try jumping. The question came in from Twitch. Oh, here's a question you might find interesting, Kevin.
Okay.
From Jeremiah 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on GameSpot.
That's a lot of numbers.
Asking, how's the music in the game? Nobody has talked about it.
I really love it, and I think one reason people don't talk about it a lot is because the music is very ambient. There's not a lot of music in Dark Souls. The music is typically only there when you're in Majula and you hear that sort of music you were just hearing now, which is very ambient and has little bell tones here and there to you know, it's creepy but with a little element of fantasy, which is appropriate for Majula. And then of course there's the big boss music, which is pretty Dark Soulsian. You know, the drums pound. You know, you got some guitars and orchestra going on together, and everything seems right with the world. So yeah, I think the music's pretty great, but there's rather little of it, and there's not a whole lot to say about it. I didn't actually, as somebody who loves game music, I didn't even mention the music in my review because I just don't think it's much of a concern. It's very
Sure. I mean,
it's very contextual.
Yes, it fits the action, the atmosphere well. It more reinforces the tone of the game than calls attention to itself.
Yeah. No, totally. It's not like you're playing Skyrim and there's just, look at me, I'm epic music everywhere you go. Yeah. I'm going to see if I can get to at least a boss.
Anivo,
if I run past these dudes.
Anivo, whose name I earlier pronounced as An3V0, because that's how it's written, but it's Anivo, I suppose, says, does the new game interface facilitate the search for items and comparisons? I think some people felt that in Dark Souls, I mean, I felt this way to some extent, that maybe things weren't always totally clear. You know, is equipping this item going to be advantageous or disadvantageous to me? Does the interface in this game?
It's not really any easier in that respect.
Okay.
Oh. No! No! There's actually a way to sort of avoid all this, but it's too late for me now. There's a switch to pull. I know, I'm screwed.
You're in bad shape, but you're doing better. You're doing okay.
Oh, there I go.
Oh.
There's a switch you can pull to make this boss fight, or a switch you can not pull to make this boss fight a lot more doable.
Whew.
No, don't attack me now.
Dude, I'm drinking. You can't, that's unsportsmanlike to attack me while I'm drinking my Estus, my healing potions.
Uh-oh. Oh, saw that one coming as soon as I made the swing.
Oh, look out, look out! Oh, no! Oh, into the drink.
I know, right? He's not that tough of a boss, but you know, that's, I mean, it is Dark Souls 2,
yes.
So saying it's not that tough of a boss, you know, it's... We'll try it again. We'll see if I can get there.
A question coming in from the Twitch chat. Would you say the warrior class is the easiest to start with?
I definitely think it has its pluses in that regard. If you're going the blocking route, the warrior is a great place to go. Plus, he gets some pretty decent starting equipment. The decent sword, the starting sword is pretty decent.
Okay.
And I found a Bastard sword pretty quickly that helps out. So I think that maybe a little bit of the early stuff that you find in the game is also helpful if you're playing a melee class. But then again, this being Dark Souls, you know, it's all pretty relative in the sense that eventually, I mean, you can level up how you want, use whatever weapons you want as long as you have the stats to support them. So, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this time, but we'll try. Oof. Yeah, he's... I'm glad he moved, actually.
WrestleMania or WrestleMania W, I don't know which, asks on GameSpot, is the magic still weak and not effective as it was in Dark Souls?
I love how some people think magic is like easy mode.
Yeah, and others think
are like
it's ineffective.
I don't think it's ineffective.
But that's right.
Yeah, I mean, I used pyromancy, and I found it super helpful. But part of that is I think that having options, no matter what class you play, is really, really important. So even if you prefer magic, having a typical weapon is really nice. Me preferring melee, I think that having something ranged can be really nice. Whether it be a bow or whether it be magic, you know. But eventually, I was really glad for the pyromancy.
Ooh.
I just wanted to get away from the drink there.
You're doing good. You're definitely wearing him down.
Yeah, patience is the other thing. This is not a game meant for non-patient people, or if you're watching me do this, it's not for dizzy people. Because the circle strafing can definitely make you dizzy. But it's a very valid tactic for a melee class, as you see. And he's down.
Nicely done.
So, victory! Now, on the other hand, that I would have been playing a very different way in different circumstances if I were not armored or did not have a shield and was dual wielding, then I would have been dodging a lot. And stamina is a really important factor in everything you do. If you haven't played Dark Souls, take note of the turquoise bar underneath the health bar. That's stamina right there.
So this actually plays into a question that I've been meaning to squeeze in for a while. Robert Le519 asks, how in-depth is the combat system?
Pretty in-depth.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, but it's largely about, I mean, movement and managing your stamina.
Yeah, it really is, and about putting yourself in the right place and making sure that you use space to your advantage, because it's pretty precise the way the collision works. So typically, you know, if you've got a wall between, like, in the way when you swing, you're going to hit the wall. You know, you're not necessarily going to hit the dude if you swing in a direction and there's a wall there. I'm going to continue talking to her.
Okay.
Because this is the single biggest hint I can give you for Dark Souls 2. Talk to everybody all the way through. If you haven't played before anyway, that's important.
Why did I come here? Do I need any other
But this woman in particular is the most vital person to talk to in terms of the entire dialogue. So just let that be the biggest hint, if I can give you one, is that.
There you go. Animal Mother on GameSpot asks, hey Kevin, how do you find navigating to be this time around? Dark Souls did have a lot of hidden areas and areas that could not even be found on your first playthrough, such as Painted World of Arameus or the Great Hollow. I mean,
there's lots of that stuff still.
Are there still hidden areas, such as these making the world seemingly intertwined, or does Majula act as more of a hub, i.e. Demon Souls?
It's not like the Nexus in Demon Souls in the sense that you just use that as your hub, and then you go out through a door into
Sure.
whatever level you want.
Uh-huh.
It's all intertwined. It's like Firelink Shrine. The only difference is that it's a lot more, that vendors and things are a lot more central
I expected
to
this
Majula
cathedral to be
Okay.
in that
bustling,
sense. So it is
but there's hardly a
your
soul to be found
home,
here.
but the world is
any
very
goings-on,
interconnected, and there are going to be a
I'll have
lot
to
of areas
move
that you can't get through when you get there
To a place
for
like
various
the Golden-
reasons. Sometimes you need a particular item to get
Sorry.
through there, and some of them are secret. There are things called
expected
Pharaoh's
this cathedral to be
Lockstones,
bustling,
and you want
but there's
to
hardly a soul
get
to
as
be
many
found
as you
here.
can, because inserting that lockstone
Without any
into
goings-on, I'll have
a
to
place on the
move
wall,
soon.
like basically the
a
lock
place
that
like a
accepts the lockstone that's on the wall,
Sorry.
will open
Help,
something up
Golem.
new for you. What that's
I
going to
teach
be,
you
you don't
the good
necessarily
word.
know. Sometimes it's just a little area with a treasure chest. Other times it's a whole brand new section of the game. And when you finish the game, it actually shows you.
I expected this
I'm sorry, I
cathedral
keep
to be
talking to her.
bustling
So,
without
Yeah,
To a place.
we've heard.
yeah, so
no need for miracles.
I'm going to go back to Majula to spend these souls in this case. So anyway, I'm really bad sometimes at playing this game
okay.
and talking at the same time. But yeah, they're when you finish the game, whenever you go to a bonfire and you want to travel, you can see all the bonfires that you've already been to, and they're all separated by major region as well as minor regions within that region. So when you finish, you can see all of the places that exist, and the places that you haven't gone or unlocked are marked with question marks. I still had major areas I had never seen marked with question marks,
Interesting.
let alone minor areas within the places I'd already been. So
Wow.
there's still so much that I never saw.
Interesting.
Now, here's another thing, and this is going to be up to you on how you play. You can hold on to your boss souls,
Uh-huh.
and there is a way to turn them in to get access to different equipment.
Sure.
I typically just use them to gain souls.
yeah.
So there is a benefit to using them, and there is a benefit to keeping them. So the benefit to using them is more immediate. The benefit to holding on to them is more long term.
Yes.
So, but now I have 22,000 souls, which at this stage is a lot. Later it's going to be whatever.
Totally.
But for now, this is key to several levels. So I'm gonna level up a little
Go for it.
with some strength. But at some point, I think I'm gonna want to do some magic.
Someone asking, are there any known big-name voice actors in Dark Souls 2? Steve Bloom, Troy Baker, Gideon Emery, Cam Clark, etc.
Those are some big names. No,
No.
not that I know of.
No.
I'm gonna give myself a little bit of magic help, because I think I'm gonna go and try to buy a wand.
Okay.
But I did upgrade some stuff there. I upgraded some strength, some agility, some endurance, which is a great thing to upgrade. Oh, you know what? There's some things that I haven't shown that I can show, even though I haven't unlocked huge parts. I'll go up here and show you some other stuff.
Okay. Arnold Head asks, and I don't think From has announced any DLC. He says, are there any plans for DLC?
I don't think anything's been announced at all.
Sure.
I think the way they did the DLC for the original is really interesting, because you could get the DLC and still play the game and not have seen the DLC. So it's
Yes.
like all of Dark Souls.
It was shrouded in
obtuse.
secrecy. Yes, totally.
And that's why I think that DLC isn't even really a good fit for Dark Souls, because I'd be pretty mad if I bought the DLC and then wasn't even able to didn't even access it and didn't know how. Mm-hmm. So first I'm gonna get some loot.
Ex-Corrupted asking on Twitch, where did you find your weapon?
This was in a treasure chest. This is a bastard sword that I found. So he's got a pretty sweet sword.
That's a ginormous sword.
And the first time I played, this door is not going to open, by the way, because I need to pull this lever, but there is a statue.
Oh, there is a statue.
There is a statue, but I can open these two doors on the sides, so we'll go ahead and do that. Yeah, this dude, he likes to clip through things.
He does. It's one of his hobbies.
It's his thing. But he's got a poison weapon.
Ugh, boy, he is gross. Caleb Sandland asking on GameSpot, how do you think Dark Souls 2 would be if it was a first-person game? It's hard for me to even imagine that because it is so... movement is so central to the combat in this game, and being aware of your position and doing things like rolling out of the way of enemy attacks.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me to imagine it retaining the weight of the combat in a first-person perspective.
You could go back and play what many consider to be the predecessor to the Souls games, which is Kingsfield. The Kingsfield games were in first person, and you could get an idea of it, and you would discover that, I mean, those games were pretty clunky anyway. So
sure.
I'm going to throw this out there. I could let him live.
Oh, yeah.
Or I could kill him. I assume that if I kill him, I might get that sweet sword. So I'm going to throw it out to the community, and I'll let Cynthia communicate into the
I've got my
document.
Sure.
What the overwhelming majority wants me to do with my creepy undead face and blazing red hair. Should I or should I not let this man
Intern
live?
Max with the first word, throwing the first stone, says, "Kill him."
I'm sure that's what everybody's going to want.
I mean, really, it's not like viewers would get to see any benefits from you letting him live, so it's not in their interest.
No, it's not in their interest. Well, okay, since I already know you're all going to say kill him,
yes,
I'll kill him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I let him live before, and he served a purpose.
Okay. Sorry, buddy. I'd have that same reaction if I were just sitting by the side of the road. Someone's... Oh, it's on now. It is on. Let's see what this sword of his can do. I mean, you will taste its venom. Oh, man. Sorry, dude.
He's done.
Oh, you monster.
I hope that this is his sword. Hells
Sure
yeah!
is.
But I bet you I can't use it. I'm probably not strong enough.
Let's at least get a look at it.
It's actually not much better than what I have.
No, it really isn't, is it?
But it's a little bit more powerful, and I can't use it yet. Oh well.
Yeah, well, now you know.
I haven't even really been looking at some of my other... I wonder if I can use that... Here we go. I wonder if I can use the bow now. Yeah, I can use the bow now, but I don't have any arrows. I don't think I have any arrows anyway.
Grin89 asked on GameSpot, are there starting gifts at the beginning of the game?
Yep.
And is the pendant from the original Dark Souls in this game as well?
The useless pendant? The pendant that you
whose
didn't know what it did anything?
Whose purpose is unknown?
And then didn't do anything at all, as far as I remember? No, that's not one of the options. But there is something that you don't know whether or not it's going to do anything for you.
Sure.
There's a petrified stone.
Okay.
That you can choose. There might be other things too. I'm pretty sure though that the petrified stone is the thing that does not have any seemingly obvious benefit, although it does ultimately bring you something.
All right.
All right. Now that I've leveled up, let's go back to the rest of that area that I was just at. And there is another boss out this way at the Blue Cathedral. But I suspect that I'm not ready for the Blue Cathedral boss.
You might not be.
I might not be ready for the Blue Cathedral boss.
Anivo asks, can you still make weapons out of dragon's tails?
I I don't know. I did not make a weapon out of a dragon's tails. There are dragons in the game, but they do not come quickly. So it'll be a while before you see a dragon. But I don't think it's a spoiler to say that there will be a dragon, because both Demon Souls and Dark Souls had dragons, so it's not any great surprise.
The boss who you fought earlier was named Dragon Rider.
Yes, and screenshots from released before the game was ever out had dragons in them. So, but there are some sweet weapons that you can get from creatures.
Oh man, that's...
This is Justin's least favorite enemy right now, I think. It's all right. He's big, but he's a pussycat.
Yeah, he's
So he's
a real teddy bear.
Yeah, he doesn't go down that hard.
There was a question on the Twitch chat a while back. Does anything in the game feel unbalanced or just unfair?
There is one section, and I would say that Demon Souls, all things considered, is probably the cheaper of the two games. If you had to...
Demon Souls or the first Dark Souls?
Dark Souls, I mean.
Okay.
So there is a spot, and maybe it's just because I am a melee character, but there is a spot where you're wading through water, and you have multiple... Well, let's try with this halberd and see what it's like. So I just picked up a halberd, so... Not a big halberd. Oh, I can't use it anyway yet. So anyway, so there's a spot where you're wading through water and you have multiple mages around you firing homing magic at you. So you cannot escape it unless you roll out of the way at the last minute, or unless you put an obstacle between you and the orb of magic. And that orb will go all across the map. There is no limit. It does not fade away at any point. It is so hard. And I don't mean hard in the way it's like, oh, I just got to be better at this. It's hard in the, all I can do is struggle through this. There doesn't appear to be any good way for me to really handle this.
Sure.
So I'm anxious when people get there to see what they think about it. But that is the only place where I felt like the odds were stacked in a way as to make me hate the game. Otherwise, all of my hate for Dark Souls 2 is just typical Dark Souls hate.
Yeah.
Which is to say, love. But hate.
Sure. Oh, you're in a bad spot, Kevin.
I got him.
You got him.
Yeah, I'm using Estus Blast.
CW Carp asked in the Twitch chat, it seems like there's a lot less Titanite and upgrade ore in Dark Souls 2. Is this generally true?
No.
Okay.
It's just that it's a bigger game, so this stuff is stretched.
Sure.
There's an area actually towards the end of the game where Twinkling Titanite is actually pretty easy to get, but also hard to get at the same time. It's hard to explain. It's plentiful, but you can't just go and grab it.
Sure.
Is what I mean.
I gotcha.
So, I don't think there are any things to get.
Speaking of upgrades, there's a good question. I just saw it. From This Is Bait in the Twitch chat, asking. This is a reference to the original Dark Souls, where you had to go to different blacksmiths for different upgrades. Asking, are multiple blacksmiths still required for equipment upgrades?
Yes.
Yes, there you go.
And not every blacksmith is going to be accessible without a little work. Not that that's a surprise. It is Dark Souls, after all.
Yes. Shaddy Paw asking, I think we touched on this earlier, but we can touch on it again. Is there a meaningful reason to light up all the torches and stuff? We don't know.
I don't know.
I bet that's going to be something
that.
I mean, part of the excitement around the original Dark Souls, I think, was in the community, players sharing stuff on message boards, piecing things together. And I imagine that there's going to be a lot of that with Dark Souls 2 as well. Maybe in time, the purpose for lighting torches will be revealed. But as of now, we don't know.
This is actually not as. I'm just looking at the knight, the gauntlets, like the different things here. But what I'm wearing is actually probably hardier. Would be good for better movement, because right now my movement's pretty, pretty sturdy,
Yes.
as it were. But I don't think there's anything down here. But I haven't figured it out if there is. Can't open that. Broken doors. So there are areas where you'll want that torch to light up.
Sure.
Because it's really hard, because it's almost impossible to see. But I suspect that more of these areas were meant to be dark, and then their changes to the lighting model made the torch a little less useful than it otherwise would have been.
Right. Blue Atrocity asking, and I think we just talked about this a short while ago, can you still make boss soul weapons?
Yes.
Yes.
I usually turn in my souls for the more immediate benefit, because I am a terrible human being.
Well, someone just hanging out by the bonfire here.
Yep. He's fun. I love his getup.
That is, yeah,
What
that's
is
an
it?
interesting headgear that he's
I don't
sporting
know you,
there. Or
and
she?
you don't
She,
know
Oh.
me. Things are better that way. Normally, people keep a safe distance when they see this mask. But you... I'm called Lucatil, from the land of Mirror to the far east, across the mountains.
This is another
They
person that
generate
you'll want to
bonds
talk
with
to
powerful souls.
and go through the entire conversation, because she'll have something for you. So at first she's like, "Ugh, I don't want to talk to you."
Right.
And so you might
Oh,
be
an
just,
odd one indeed.
like, okay, I won't
I've
talk
always
to
made
you.
a-
You know,
Be that
sometimes-
way.
Sometimes
You've
you
made a
need
point of
to
engaging me.
be there for people for a while to get them to
I can
come
see
out of
that
their
you are on this
shells.
journey. If you require assistance, I will help you. I
And
come
Lucatil
from
will
Mirror,
also be
a
available
land of knights.
to summon
My sword
at a
is
certain
always
point if
ready.
you need.
Don't hesitate
Not
to call upon me.
indefinitely.
Whatever happens,
You
I
get
won't be moved.
oftentimes, you try to beat a boss a few times, and then suddenly there's a summon stone,
You are an
Yes.
even if you're playing offline.
You've made it.
Right, right. There were
come
similar
from there.
NPCs in the
Don't-
original Dark Souls.
Right. So I'm gonna rest up for my Estus flasks, and we will move on. I believe. Oh, she's gone.
Just like that, she's gone.
Yeah. I believe that this takes me to the wharf.
All right. And then we do actually need to wrap this up.
Oh, that sucks.
I
Oh, that
know.
doesn't mean I have to stop playing Dark Souls forever,
no,
though.
you.
Oh, I went back where I came from. I went in the wrong direction, I think.
Is there another way to go? There is.
Yeah. Because I think we are heading off towards here. We are.
Ooh. All right. So here's just a glimpse
Glimpse of No Man's
of
Wharf.
another area
Excuse me
in
while
Dark
I
Souls 2,
get out of the way
where
of
someone is
the-
already shooting at you.
And don't fall into that water there. There's a bridge. Sorry, I got a little... Ah! Leave me alone!
Oh. All right.
Okay, that's
That's,
probably a good time to...
So yeah, close to death, but managed to survive. So thanks for watching,
All right.
everyone, and stay tuned to GameSpot for more content on Dark Souls 2, and we'll see you again real soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.